I didn't expect to think about her that much. Not at first. It was just a Tuesday, the kind where you don't even remember what you had for breakfast. I'd been at the laundromat across the street, headphones in, watching shirts tumble inside the dryer like they had more of a life than I did. She came in carrying a basket tucked against her hip. Mid-40s, maybe. Dark hair tied back in a loose knot. A jacket that looked lived in, not fashionable. Nothing about her screamed for attention, but somehow I noticed her before anyone else. She nodded at me. Just a small, neighborly hello. I'd seen her before. She lived 2 doors down from my building, always bringing groceries up the stairs by herself. I never said more than hi. That day, she struggled with the coin slot on one of the machines. She muttered something under her breath, half annoyed. I pulled out one earbud. Sometimes it sticks, I said. You've got to push it all the way in. She glanced up. Her eyes caught mine for a second longer than felt normal. Then she smiled, small, almost apologetic. Guess I'm out of practice. I showed her, not really a big deal, just a push and a click. She thanked me, brushing her hair back, the kind of gesture you don't notice unless you're already noticing too much. We talked for a few minutes. Nothing heavy. Weather, how the dryers eat quarters, how the folding tables wobble. She laughed once, quietly, and it was the kind of laugh that sounded like she hadn't used it in a while. After that, silence slipped back between us. She sat on the bench with her book. I sat with my phone, pretending to scroll, but watching her thumb press the corner of each page like she was smoothing it into place. When my cycle finished, I folded my clothes quickly, clumsy. My hands felt too big for the fabric. She looked up once, just as I dropped a sock. She didn't say anything, but her smile reached her eyes. Thanks again, she said as I picked up my laundry. Anytime, I replied, though I wasn't sure what I meant by any time. I left before her. The air outside felt cooler than it should have. I walked the block home slower than usual, my bag cutting into my shoulder. I kept thinking about how she'd said, out of practice. Out of practice with what, laundry? Or something else she hadn't meant to let slip. Later that night, I opened my phone, almost typed a message to a friend I hadn't spoken to in weeks, then erased it. I stared at the empty screen, thinking about how small interactions sometimes feel louder than whole conversations. Around 11, just as I was about to switch off the light, I heard a knock on my door. 3 short raps. I hesitated, heart catching in my chest. Nobody visits me that late. When I opened it, she was standing there, holding the broken handle of her laundry basket in one hand. Sorry, she said, voice low, almost embarrassed. Do you happen to have a screwdriver? And just like that, an ordinary Tuesday no longer felt ordinary. She stood in my doorway with the broken basket handle in her hand, like she wasn't sure whether to apologize or laugh at herself. A screwdriver, she repeated, softer this time, almost like she'd considered turning back before I even answered. I nodded too quickly, stepping aside. Yeah, come in. I think I've got one. Her eyes flicked over the small space of my apartment, not judging, but noticing. My desk stacked with books, the mug half full of cold coffee, laundry still folded from earlier. She stayed near the door while I dug through a drawer, trying not to look like I was searching my entire life for a single tool. Finally, I found it. A cheap, red-handled one. I held it out. You saved me twice in one day, she said, smiling faintly. At this rate, I'll owe you a favor. I shrugged, not sure what to do with my hands. Guess I'm good for small fixes. She set the basket on the counter and leaned over it, working at the handle with quiet concentration. I offered to do it, but she shook her head. I used to be the one who fixed things in my house. Guess I got used to it. The way she said it, past tense, made me wonder. I didn't ask, but I wanted to. Instead, I just watched her hands, the way she braced the basket, the way a loose strand of hair slipped forward until she tucked it back. When the screw finally tightened, she exhaled like she'd just finished something heavier than a repair. You drink tea? She asked suddenly, glancing at the mug on my desk. Coffee mostly, I said. She smiled. Too sharp. Keeps me awake in the wrong ways. Before I knew it, she was offering to make some. My kitchen was hardly more than a corner with a stove, but she didn't seem to mind. I stood awkwardly nearby while she filled the kettle, moving around like she'd been here before. Divorced 3 years now, she said casually, like she was naming the weather. Still feels strange boiling water for one. I nodded, the words catching in my throat. I didn't know what to say, but the silence seemed to answer enough. When the kettle whistled, she poured the tea into mismatched cups. We sat across from each other at the small table, steam rising between us. I noticed how carefully she held the cup, both hands around it, like she needed the warmth. "You're young," she said finally, almost teasing. "What are you, 22? "Yeah," I admitted. She looked at me then, properly looked, her gaze steady. The age when everything feels like it might start any second. I laughed quietly, though it came out nervous. Or like it already started without me. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. She sipped her tea and didn't reply. We sat like that, sipping, the ticking of the wall clock too loud in the small room. I thought about what it would mean if someone walked in, saw us there. Just neighbors sharing tea, nothing wrong with that. Still, it felt like more. When she stood to leave, she set the cup down carefully, not quite finished. "Thanks for the screwdriver," she said, her voice lighter, almost back to casual. I nodded, walking her to the door. Just as she stepped out, she paused. "You should keep some tea around. Coffee won't always do the trick." She reached out, a small touch on my forearm, brief enough to pass as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. After she left, I stood there with the unfinished cup still on the table, the handle of her basket fixed, and the warmth of her fingers lingering longer than I expected. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me that it rained harder than the forecast promised. One of those sudden, heavy downpours that made the street look like it was dissolving. I was halfway back from the store, jacket useless, when I saw her standing under the narrow awning outside our building, groceries pressed against her chest. "You're soaked," she said as I hurried over, her voice half amused, half concerned. "So are you." I shot back, shaking my hair out. The thunder cracked above us. We laughed, but too quickly, like we weren't supposed to be enjoying the pause. The bags in her arms shifted, and I reached for them without thinking. "Let me." She hesitated before letting me take one. A pause, small but loud. Inside her apartment, the air smelled faintly of citrus and something faintly floral. She set the groceries on the counter, brushing damp strands from her forehead. "You didn't have to. It's fine," I said, too fast. I didn't know where to stand, so I hovered near the doorway. She unpacked in silence. Tomatoes, tea, a loaf of bread. I watched her hands move, deliberate, like each item had its own weight beyond what it was. Then, without looking up, she asked, "People your age don't usually spend time with neighbors, do they?" I swallowed. Guess I'm not most people. That earned me a glance. Quick, sharp. Then she looked away. The rain pressed against the windows, louder now. We both noticed it. Neither of us filled the silence. When she offered me a towel, I brushed past her to take it, closer than necessary. Too close. My arm grazed hers. Neither of us moved right away. The sound of footsteps in the hall broke it. A neighbor's door slamming. We stepped apart instinctively, like we'd been caught though nothing had happened. "Maybe I should," I started. She cut in softly. "You don't have to rush." My chest tightened. I wanted to say something, but the words lodged somewhere between my ribs and throat. She stood at the counter, drying her hands on the same towel she'd given me, eyes lowered. I imagined crossing the room, imagined the space shrinking, imagined. Instead, I said, "You cook a lot?" She smiled faintly at the deflection. "Enough to keep myself fed." "A beat," she added, almost whispering. "It's different, cooking for one." The clock ticked on the wall. I folded the towel, too neatly, setting it on the back of a chair. She noticed, because she noticed everything. We lingered in that gap, neither moving toward nor away. Her eyes lifted once, meeting mine. Steady. Waiting, maybe. I took half a step. My hand twitched like it wanted to find hers. The rain eased outside, softening. The moment should have softened too, but it only grew sharper. I started, but the word broke apart before it formed. She looked at me then, properly. And for one suspended second, we were almost there. Almost. The knock on her door ended it. It was late afternoon, that gray hour when the light looks tired. She was sitting on the bench outside our building, coat draped over her lap, a thermos by her side. I almost walked past, pretended I hadn't noticed, but she looked up at exactly the wrong moment. Or the right one. "You're back early," she said, shifting slightly to make space beside her. I sat, the wood cool under me. Class got canceled. The street was quieter than usual. Damp from yesterday's rain, leaves sticking to the pavement. She unscrewed the lid of her thermos, steam curling up, and offered it to me. "Tea." I took it, fingers brushing hers. Warmth bled into me, more from the touch than the drink. We sat in silence, sipping, listening to a bus break at the corner, to footsteps fading down the block. I could feel something unspoken swelling between us. Not urgent, not loud, just there. She exhaled slow. "It's funny," she said. "I used to sit here with my husband. Same bench. He hated tea. Always teased me for drinking it." The word husband landed heavier than she meant, I think. She didn't glance at me, just kept her eyes on the street. I tried to sound casual. "Do you ever see him?" She shook her head. "Not since the papers were signed." A pause, then softer. "He has someone new." The thermos felt heavier in my hands. I wanted to ask her if it still hurt, but I didn't. I could see the answer in the way she pressed her lips together. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," she added. "Maybe because I asked," I said. That earned me the faintest smile, quick and gone. She leaned back, hands folded over her coat. I noticed her thumb moving slightly, like she was rubbing an old bruise. "You're, what, 22? She asked again, the same question she'd asked before. "Yeah. Feels wrong sometimes," she murmured. The words slid between us like a blade wrapped in cloth, soft, but cutting anyway. I wanted to say it didn't. I wanted to tell her the way I checked the window before leaving, hoping to catch a glimpse of her on the stairs. But I just sat there, fingers tightening around the thermos. A couple walked past us, laughing too loudly. She followed them with her eyes, then looked away quickly. "You'll meet someone," she said finally. "Someone not me." Her voice was steady, but her hand trembled when she reached for the thermos. I didn't let go right away. Our fingers overlapped. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she pulled back, clearing her throat. "You should go. You've got a whole life waiting. Don't waste time sitting on benches with women twice your age." There was no humor in it, though she tried. I stared at her profile, the sharpness of it softened by the fading light. My chest felt tight, words pushing to get out. "I don't think it's a waste," I said quietly. That froze her. Her head turned, slowly, eyes searching mine like she didn't trust what she heard. "What do you mean?" she asked. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. I don't feel this way with anyone else." Her lips parted, but no sound came. The air thickened, heavier than the gray clouds above us. She set the thermos down between us, carefully, like it might shatter. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "I mean it," I said, voice low, almost trembling. Her eyes lingered on mine, wide, conflicted, holding me there like gravity itself. And for a moment, I thought she might reach across the space, close it. Instead, she looked away, down at her hands, her breath uneven. The silence grew unbearable. Then she said, almost to herself, "What are we doing?" The question hung there, unanswered, sharp as rain waiting to fall. After that day on the bench, something shifted. Not outwardly, no one else would notice. But I felt it. The air between us was charged, cautious. Like we'd stepped too close to a line we weren't sure existed until we brushed against it. The next evening, I half expected to see her outside again. Same bench, same thermos. But she wasn't there. I checked the hall, the mail slots, even slowed my steps past her door. Nothing. 2 days turned into 3. By the 4th, I caught myself lingering in the laundromat, half hoping she'd appear with her basket. She didn't. When I finally saw her again, she was carrying groceries, same as always, balanced against her hip. But this time, someone was walking beside her. A girl, maybe 18, 19. Same dark hair. Similar eyes. Her daughter. They walked past me in the lobby. She smiled politely, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her daughter looked at me once, quickly, before asking something under her breath. My neighbor shook her head, answering low. I froze, my mouth dry, nodding back like just another stranger. That night, I kept replaying it. Her saying, "You'll meet someone," while her own daughter stood at her side. Was that what she meant? Was that why she'd pulled away? The next week, the pattern continued. She wasn't outside, wasn't in the laundromat, wasn't anywhere except in flashes, carrying bags, unlocking her door, once laughing into her phone with someone I didn't know. I told myself to stop waiting. But my body betrayed me. Slowing down near her door, opening my blinds at odd hours, sitting with my phone like a message might come even though she didn't have my number. One evening, the knock came, but not on my door. I heard it through the thin wall, followed by muffled voices. A man's voice. I couldn't make out the words, but his laugh carried. Deep, easy. Her door shut, softer than I wanted it to. I sat there, fingers tapping on the edge of my desk, restless. My phone lit up with a notification from a friend, someone I hadn't seen in months. I typed a reply, then erased it. Typed again, erased. Finally, I opened a blank message. To her. Or maybe just to no one. "You don't have to avoid me." I stared at it until the words blurred. My thumb hovered over send. Then I locked the screen. The days stretched. She was still there, always there, but suddenly distant, untouchable. A polite nod in the stairwell. A quick hi, without stopping. No more tea, no more benches. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. One night, I heard her laugh through the wall again, this time followed by silence that felt too heavy to be alone. I stood at my door, hand on the knob, debating whether to knock. I didn't. The hall stayed quiet, except for the faint hum of the building's old lights. My hand slipped from the knob. Her door, just a few feet away, remained closed. And the space between us grew wider without either of us moving. It was late when I saw her again. The hallway lights buzzed overhead, dim and tired, and she was fumbling with her keys at the door. "Groceries again." "Always groceries." "Need a hand?" I asked before I thought better of it. She startled, then half-smiled without meeting my eyes. "I've got it." But she didn't. The bag split just as the lock clicked, an apple rolling down the hall. I caught it before it hit the stairwell. Her laugh was quiet, worn. "Guess the universe likes making me look helpless." "You're not," I said. Too quickly, too sharp. Her eyes flicked up at me. We stood there, bags between us, the hum of the lights filling the silence. Then she pushed her door open. "Come in for a second," she said softly. I followed. Her apartment smelled faintly of lemon soap and warm bread. The kitchen light cast everything in pale yellow. She set the bags down, smoothing her hands over the counter like she was trying to press something invisible flat. I stood there, unsure what to do with myself. Finally, I set the apple on the counter beside her. "Thanks," she murmured. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was waiting. She leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "You've been distant." I almost laughed. "Me?" Her gaze held mine, steady. "Yes, you." Avoiding me in the hall, pretending not to notice. I rubbed the back of my neck. "I thought that was you." "Maybe it was both of us," she said. Something in her voice cracked then, just slightly. I caught it. I don't think she meant me to. "I don't understand," I said, quieter now. There was something. And then it stopped. She pressed her lips together, eyes on the floor. "My daughter was here. You saw her." I nodded. "And an ex showed up once, drunk. He thought." "I don't even know what he thought." She shook her head. It made me realize how easily this, she gestured vaguely between us, could look wrong. "It doesn't feel wrong," I said. Her breath hitched, just slightly. She looked at me like she was weighing the cost of believing that. "You're young," she whispered. "And I'm not." I stepped closer. Not touching, just close enough to feel the space thin. "So what? You think I don't know what I want?" Her eyes shimmered. Not with tears, not quite, but with something close. "You want everything right now?" "And I." She stopped herself, shaking her head. The kettle on her stove clicked faintly as the metal cooled. Neither of us moved. Finally, she whispered, "You scare me." My chest tightened. "Why?" "Because I could get used to this," she said, voice breaking on the last word. The room felt fragile, like one wrong move could shatter it. I wanted to reach for her, but my hands stayed at my sides. Then maybe let yourself, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Her lips parted. For a moment, I thought she might. Her hand lifted slightly, then stopped, fingers curling back toward her palm. We stood there, breaths uneven, everything unsaid filling the air. Then, quietly, she asked, "And when you leave? When you realize you were just passing through?" I swallowed hard. Then at least we'll both know it wasn't nothing. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. The world kept going. But for me, everything narrowed to the space between us. Finally, she stepped closer, just enough that her hand brushed mine. Not holding, not quite touching. Just there. Her eyes closed for a second, then opened. She whispered, barely audible, "Okay." And that was it. Not a kiss. Not a promise. Just okay. But it felt like more than anything I'd been waiting for. Months passed, though it didn't feel like it. Time shifted in softer increments. Groceries carried together, lights seen through each other's windows, the quiet knock of a thermos set on my desk at 8:47 a.m. before class. We never had a conversation where we declared anything. No dramatic confessions. No words like forever. It was smaller than that, and somehow larger. Some evenings, she'd make tea, and I'd stubbornly brew coffee. We'd trade cups, teasing the other, pretending not to prefer the opposite. She still folded her hands around her mug, both palms pressed like she was holding something fragile. I'd still glance too long at the way her eyes softened when steam curled up against her face. The bench outside our building became ours again. Not every night. Sometimes weeks went by, but when it happened, it felt unspoken. Her jacket draped over her lap, my bag slouched against the wood, a shared thermos between us. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Her daughter came by less often, though I still caught the wary glance whenever we crossed paths. Over time, even that softened, the way suspicion always does when it keeps meeting ordinary kindness. She let me fix small things in her apartment. Cabinet doors that squeaked, a loose railing, the lamp that never stayed straight. I started leaving tools there, not because she asked, but because it made sense. Sometimes, she'd tell me stories, half-finished memories about when her daughter was small, or the night she first signed the divorce papers. She never cried telling them, but her voice would slow, like she was touching something tender. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Other times, it was me. About my father not calling back. About drifting through classes without knowing what came after. About how sometimes I'd open my phone, type messages, then erase them. She didn't fix it. She didn't tell me what to do. She just let me talk, and that was enough. It wasn't a secret anymore, not really. The neighbors probably knew. A nod lingered longer when people passed us. One even raised an eyebrow at the 2 cups left on the bench. But nobody said anything, and we didn't explain. One morning, after a night of rain, we sat on that bench again. She poured tea into the lid of the thermos, handed it to me with that half-smile that had become familiar. "You'll still prefer coffee," she teased. "Maybe," I said, sipping anyway. We sat in silence, watching the street dry. A bus hissed at the corner, brakes letting out a sigh. For once, the silence didn't feel heavy. It just felt like life, ordinary, steady, ours. I glanced at her, at the way her hand rested on the bench, fingers brushing wood that had held years of her life before me. Without really thinking, I set my hand near hers. Not on it, just near. Close enough that she knew. She looked at me once, steady, and then leaned back, eyes closing briefly, like she'd finally found the right place to rest. And for the first time, I didn't feel paused. I felt like the sentence had quietly continued, right where it was meant to. Something only the two of us would ever understand.